So members of the council, you have an agenda before you. This is a work session, so it'll be, we're not going to have any motions and approvals and so on unless it gets really unpleasant. And so does anything need to change on the agenda? I'm hearing silence. So I'm going to assume.
No, I'm not seeing anything that I'd want to change. So.
Okay, very good. That means that we can move on to the mayor's report, and I am going to actually take a little time and do a mayor's report this time. Except the agenda went full screen on me, so it's going to take me a little while. So I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about mainly about the COVID-19 situation. Item one is that I heard from Councilmember Danielle Glaros, County Councilmember Danielle Glaros today, that there's a new program for businesses, and I don't have a link, I don't have the contact information, but it's out there. And if there are any businesses listening in on this or seeing this online in a few days, then please give me a contact or give Danielle Glaros a contact and try to get in on it. It's to help businesses, small businesses out. In terms of the human side of it, the not business side of it, Maryland is doing fairly well. The deaths are dropping overall. We had a little bump up this morning. The ICU population is stable. Hospitalizations are stable, but increasing just a little bit. And I think that the 500,000 tests that were required by Governor and his wife will help us stay on top of that. Prince George's is doing okay. The cases are increasing, but not so fast as testing. The rate of testing has gone up a lot over the last few days, and there are a lot more negatives, which is what you would like to see. Our zip code, 20737, is not doing so well. We've had a doubling of cases in the last 7 or 8 days, which at some stages of the epidemic in other places would have been a cause for celebration, but I don't think it is right here. The rest of the state is turning over a lot faster. We are, or we were on Sunday, the 5th worst zip code in Maryland in per capita cases with, again, as of Sunday, 740 cases per 100,000 population. And we will probably hit 1% infected fairly soon. That's pushing 1% already. Riverdale Park doesn't have separated out data, so we have to assume that we're just a third of 20737, which means we have about 60 confirmed cases, and that will probably result, given the current rates, in 2 to 3 deaths in the town. And we are not done with this epidemic by a good bit. And moving away from disease statistics, we have a lot of people who are out of work and a lot of people who are hungry. And the response to recent food distributions has been overwhelming. So things are really not good on that front. Where might we be in the next month or so? With the increased availability of testing and hopefully increased contact tracing and hopefully being past the surge of medical cases, we may be moving towards reopening the economy in the next month or so. What we need to do that safely is 24-hour turnaround testing with high availability and robust contact tracing. And so I think what we're likely to see is a loosening of the faucet, not opening the floodgates. We're going to see certain types of businesses open up again, still have a lot of restrictions, maybe outdoor restaurants, maybe a fraction of non-essential employees going to work. And maybe with a little bit of luck, we will see some seasonal reductions with the warmer weather of summer coming in, as we see with flu. Although if we do see that, I fear that we might take it for granted, and in which case we will have a very unhappy fall as the disease comes back. Based on a call I was on a few weeks ago, we're still 3 to 6 months out of having antiviral treatments, and a vaccine with unknown effectiveness and length of effectiveness is still more than a year out. So this is not great, but there are spots of light and hope that we can see in this current situation. In my own wandering around town, getting exercise, occasional ducking into a shop. I see that people are doing pretty well in maintaining physical distance from people who are not in their household. There's still room to improve, but I'm seeing good compliance. We are pulling together, and there are an enormous number of caring and devoted people I've met and am working with. I've been getting an enormous amount of information from the Bloomberg Philanthropies. There's Coronavirus Local Response Initiative. I have this 2-hour meeting every Thursday afternoon. And I've been getting great information on how to break down the problems we're facing into manageable pieces, how to communicate with town staff and constituents, and then information about the crisis, both medical and economic. And this has really guided my response. There are a lot of food security organizations I've been working with. The Prince George's County Food Equity Council, Central Kenilworth Area Revitalization has sponsored the Greater Riverdale Cares program for feeding people in our community. Brighter Bites, the Christian Life Center, and Kaiser Family Foundation are all highly involved in making sure that one of the bases of the needs that people have, food, is available in our community. I've seen a mobilized and energized government. The county health department, the county executive, our county council representative, Galaros, have all been fantastically energetic, getting information out, working to help out members of the community. I have these weekly briefings from municipal leaders from the county executive's office, and know from this that they are looking at immediate needs of food and housing and rent, planning for possible surges of medical need, and they are talented and motivated and available for questions and answers. It's really great. The state delegation, our representatives in the State House, are very good at providing information and running interference for residents of the district. And Governor Hogan's office and the rest of the state executive branch are doing really great things. Amazing acquisition of the 500,000 tests from Korea, strong leadership and following the scientific advice to generate executive orders to close down what needs to be closed down. And I find them very responsive to questions about programs and the executive orders to help our residents and businesses understand what they're supposed to be doing. And last but not least, you, the members of the town council and town staff, I know you're working hard to meet the needs of our residents and businesses. And of course, there are also the individuals in town who are working in their own ways to make this a better place. I have a neighbor who sits on her porch every evening at 7 p.m. and rings the bell for the first responders and the medical workers. I know that there are EMS techs at the volunteer fire department and other firefighter volunteers. There are 2 EMS techs in particular I heard about that are keeping the ambulance running, and they're doing it no matter what. They're putting in really long hours to make that happen. And then there's lots of people who are calling and writing me to report the issues that they see, trying to help keep the number of cases down to help flatten the curve. And based on what I've seen in our community, I have faith that we as a community will emerge from this crisis with terrible scars, but intact, and in certain ways, and eventually stronger. We'll do this by working together. We'll do this by making personal and financial sacrifices. We'll do this by listening to those who have spent their lives studying and preparing for events like this, and we will overall do it together. That concludes my report.
Very, very nice, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any public comments? Need to adjust the screen size so I can actually see a few more faces.
Mr. Mayor, I had a question regarding your report.
Yes, sir.
Regarding food distribution events, about a little over 10 days ago, when the Christian Life Center event got shifted from where the church was up to Riverdale Elementary, we had a considerable issue with traffic along Riverdale Road.
Yes.
It seems that some new logistics are in order, and I know Chief Morris has met with Pastor Ben Sly about a possible second location. I was wondering if we could get an update. I know it might be jumping the gun a little bit, but I was wondering if we can get an update on what so far the contingency would be for the event that's going to be May 15th.
So my understanding, and Chief Morris can jump in to correct me if this is incorrect, I heard this from Pastor Sly this morning, is that the May 15th event is going to occur on Tanglewood Drive, which will have a lot of space for cars to line up without interfering with other, general traffic. There's not a lot of traffic along there these days. And will also allow walkers from the apartment buildings to get to the food distribution. And he is working to gather a large number of volunteers for crowd management and that sort of thing, so that the event should go better. And there's a new program that has the word shift in it. Something shift. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Where there are grants that are available that are paying for hospitality workers to work in food distribution or food preparation during the pandemic, and actually pays them for this. And he may be tapping into that to get some volunteers who are actually going to be packing and handing out the food. And then some of his existing volunteers may be working on crowd control. But that's my understanding of the current situation. May 15th is, of course, more than 2 weeks out, and who knows where we're going to be at that point.
Okay, I know one of the challenges that they had on the 17th was being able to get supplies up from Christian Life Center to the school. The demand was so great that they were running out of the food bags they packed, and that was causing a considerable lag. Is there under consideration any additional assistance for the Christian Life Center logistically to transport food bags from the church over to the Tanglewood site?
My understanding from Pastor Sly from this morning, again, is that they are going to be redoing how they pack the bags and how they transport the bags. And I believe they're slightly shifting the schedule of the event a little bit in order to prevent the logistical problems you discussed.
Okay. And being that it's going to be over at Park Tanglewood and the way that is set up, I would imagine that the flow of traffic would be coming in from Riverdale Road heading south down Tanglewood Drive, which means then that folks in cars are going to be exiting out through the town of Edmonston. Are they aware of these arrangements that are being made?
That I don't have an answer for. Chief Morris, do you know?
So two things. The answer to that one is yes, through the chief of police. So that's one. And the second part of that is we're working with Maryland Park, and I think we're going to actually be able to get some access or egress through Fletcher's Field.
Oh, okay. Okay. Those are the questions I had regarding that event. Regarding upcoming months, you had mentioned about, through the summer and then coming into the fall. Is there any talk or consideration of having or preparing or setting up a wider testing operation come the end of summer, beginning of fall? I'll just pull a date out of the hat, that being October 1st. Is the county or state ready to prepare? Are they looking to prepare to be able to test people in a larger number than they are currently at that point, so as to have better testing and tracking?
So this is some of the advice I've gotten from the Bloomberg Mayor's Conference, or teleconference, is that predicting where we're going to be in September, October is essentially impossible right now. So in the next month, then there are going to be new tests coming out, serological antibody tests. What's the availability of the viral test going to be in the fall? Who knows? I mean, right now we have 500,000 tests that we got from South Korea. Is local production going to take off? Are we going to have domestic supplies? Are we going to have a loosened supply from overseas? It's all completely unknown. And we don't even know whether there will be a significant seasonal effect. That's not been established right now. There are a lot of outbreaks in some places that are pretty warm right now. And so we will, the county is honestly, everyone is moving very quickly to shift plans, shift situations as need be. I mean, the 500,000 tests, then we didn't know about that a week and a half ago. We didn't know they were coming at all. And yet they've been integrated in, and they've got the testing up and running in under a week. They had significant results out in about 5 days after they arrived, and the tests take a couple of days to turn around at this time. So I think predicting what's going to happen in September and October right now is completely impossible. And I'll just say that I think that the leadership that is in place, both in the county and in the state, will take advantage and will have resources where they need to be in the fall.
Okay. So that's a contingency they're not considering right now.
That is not anything that they are spending a huge amount of time planning for. I mean, they've been ramping up the testing system, the testing stations now just over the last few weeks. And I think that they will learn from that experience and plan for the, have contingency plans for the fall and firm them up as we get closer.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Still open for public comments if the members of the public who are here want to comment. Anybody? Okay, let's move on to the town manager's report.
Mr. Mayor, I will first say that you're a hard act to follow. It reminds me of a number of years ago. I was called upon to speak following Julian Bond, and I thought, yes. And so the only thing that I will add is that the staff team continues to adjust and to plan as much as we can for whatever may be the interim new normal. But as you said, Mr. Mayor, things will change and things are uncertain. So while we may look and say, where might we be in June and how might we be able to offer services in June, it's good that we're going through these exercises to project. But frankly, we don't know what June's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And but the staff leadership team and more broadly the whole staff team, we're looking at ways that we can further automate and roll out enhancements, if you will, to the first and second round of changes that we've made, so we can continue to deliver services. And that's all I have to share tonight, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Are there any questions for the Town Manager?
No questions from me.
Seeing lots of shaking heads from the council, so let's move on to council committee and ward reports. Councilmember Dixon.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I do not have a report. I think, Mr. Mayor, you covered it. I will continue to thank the staff and for all that they're doing in this time, and hopefully everyone will continue to stay safe and stay home. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Foe, Ward 2.
Yeah, I will withhold most of my remarks until the legislative meeting. I just want to echo the sentiments of Councilwoman Dixon, thanking staff for their remarkable commitment to the budget process that we've undertaken and attended meetings the last 2 weekends, and continue to say thank you to our Public Works Department and Police Department that are continuing to work through this pandemic and give us the best that they possibly can. And with that, I'll yield.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Lingua, Ward 3.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep this brief. On behalf of the Central Kenilworth Avenue Revitalization CDC, I just wanted to say thank you to those residents and folks who have contributed to the Greater Riverdale CARES program and the donations being made. Just wanted to share that with folks, and that's pretty much the extent of it. I echo the sentiments of my esteemed colleagues regarding the effort that staff is putting forward, both on the budget and also just with the day-to-day operations in the town.
I'll just mention that the Greater Riverdale CARES donations topped $15,000 today. So not $15,000 during the day, but total over $15,000. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Henry is not here, is that correct? Don't see him. Councilmember Richardson is also not here, I believe. Councilmember Richardson has had a family crisis, and I haven't had a chance to talk to her since this happened, but I'll be letting you know as soon as I talk to her. Councilmember Mayers, do you have a report?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nothing to report at this time.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the work session discussion items. Item number 1, a fence permit request. I know we have 2 eager applicants online at 4710 Ravenswood Road. That's Ward 2. Councilmember Foe or Ms. Doyle?
Councilmember Foe, do you want to say anything? No.
No, there's if you guys want to say anything, you're more than welcome. There's a fence permit request for a 6-foot wooden fence at 4710 Ravenswood Road. I consulted with and there's nothing here that would prevent this from being on the consent agenda next at our legislative meetings.
Okay. I'm looking at the map. It looks like it's all in good shape to me also. Any other council questions or comments?
I take it, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I take it the applicant has spoken with neighbors they're tangential to about the fence, and that they're comfortable with it.
It's an empty property.
Yeah, it's a vacant lot beside it that it's been problematic with overgrowth for years. So this is something that is beneficial.
Okay.
And I believe
so
there's
at the side of the house. Where exactly is it going? Is that the back? I'm assuming that's the back. I see a picture of the back of the house. Oh no, sorry, that is the front of the house. So is it along that?
Just along one side, yeah.
Okay.
And I believe there's a 6-foot fence at the back of the property already. Is that correct?
4 foot.
4 foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think the impact on the back lot of this fence is pretty minimal.
Okay.
Any other council questions or comments?
Just one, so it's going to go along that, I guess if you're facing the house, along the left-hand side where the, I guess, overgrowth is. And then it looks like there's also something, a part that's going to jut out near the garage. Is that to close it?
Just a gate, yeah, just to close it.
Okay.
Okay.
Everyone okay with it going on the consent agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
This is right next to the
Wells Run.
Wells Run, correct?
yes.
Okay.
It's not right next to. There's a half a property there.
Okay.
Okay. thank you for your application, and unless something blows up, then this will be passed next week as a vote of multiple items together, and you should not need to attend.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, fiscal year 2021 proposed operating and capital improvement budget.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of the community. So as you know, we've spent the last 2 Saturdays reviewing the proposed budget. We've also been talking about the budget in terms of formulating the budget and our approach to the budget since December. At numerous meetings, we have 3 additional meetings after tonight in which public comment would also be accepted on the budget. We wanted to take just a few minutes tonight to talk about the result, if you will, of the 2 budget public hearings. So as we went through the budget in those meetings, a few things came to light. One, a number of typos. So staff have worked hard to correct the typos. We expect to have a revised or adjusted proposed budget online tomorrow, just correcting all those various typos. There were 2 other issues that came up, and one involved the cellular telephone charges and the allocation of those. We had some concerns there, and so staff investigated that. And I guess there were 3 items. A second was dealing with whether or not we had sufficient money in the police communications for bilingual pay. And then a third, staff discovered that the formula wasn't picking up a number. So we went through all those. We've made adjustments to cover shortages without growing the budget. So we worked over the last 2.5 days to go through the budget again. And we needed to come up with some money to cover cell phone expense, to cover the expense that was not accounted for the additional person with bilingual, and for the amount that was not picked up in a formula. So with that, Mr. Jones is here. Ryan or Jessica, if you could allow Mr. Jones to share his screen, and he will show a spreadsheet that covers these adjustments, and the revised proposed that we will publish tomorrow will have these adjustments included in it. And then we're here to respond to any questions or concerns that the council have. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I'm trying to share my screen. It says that the host disabled the screen sharing. Jessica, can you give me the ability to share my screen? Thank you. Also, John, you kind of cut out a little bit, so I missed a little bit of your. So if I repeat anything that you had said, I apologize.
Nope, that's fine. I basically said that you're going to cover the adjustments we made to the cell phone area, the area where we did not have enough for the bilingual pay in police communications, and then the adjustment that needed to be updated to handle the amount that wasn't picked up. We had that formula issue where those lines were not picking up in the total. But the overall budget number, the total budget does not change.
Correct. Okay, so like John was saying, we during our last meeting on Saturday during the budget meeting, we had discussed the 3 items. First being the mobile phones, second being the columns that didn't add up, and then lastly the bilingual pay. So this sheet reflects some of the changes that we made. We have the telephone mobile. We made adjustments in the Public Works Department, the Police Officers Department, Public Safety Administration, and lastly, the Public Safety Communications Department. All in all, we had we had to increase adjustments like we had thought we had last Saturday. As far as the column that didn't add up, that was in development services for travel and hotel. So we made an adjustment there. And the last was the public safety communications, where we added additional pay for the bilingual stipend. So those were the additions that we made. And then we went through the budget and we made additional adjustments in order to balance the budget based off the things that we had, the three items that we had made adjustments to. So all in all, like John had said, we are still at the $7,251,320 for a balanced budget.
And if you could, Gentry, you covered where we had to put money. Can you cover where we took money from?
Sure, yes.
In order to find that balance?
Yes, that would be this section right here. So we went to the Office of Administrative Services and we made an adjustment to the special projects. We made an adjustment in Public Works for the travel and hotel. We made an adjustment for travel and transportation in the Office of Public Works. And we also made an adjustment for travel, meals, and incidentals in the Office of Public Works as well. So all in all, we had four different adjustments in order to balance the budget based on the three items that we had discussed on Saturday. So yeah, we had to make an adjustment of $12,900 in order to balance the budget. And that is reflected on this adjustment log.
And we'll get this posted and emailed out to the council as well. Mm-hmm. The only thing I will add is the special projects budget in Office of Administrative Services. That's actually a special projects that the town manager's office utilizes that sum, and I'm fine with that change. The adjustments made in Public Works, I spoke with Ms. Lewis before we finalized those, and actually her conferences and that appear to be canceled for next year. So we're gonna be looking for online things anyway. And if we needed, we could probably take a little bit more from there. But it's something where she felt comfortable making those changes as well. So if the mayor and council have any questions or comments or concerns.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question, if I may.
Please do.
On that last point regarding conferences of the like and how they're being scheduled or rescheduled, I mean, I just received something from MML regarding how they're looking at doing a virtual summer conference. So it looks like with what's happening with the pandemic, the training and education portion of our budget is looking to be substantially altered for this fiscal year. Are the numbers that we were seeing on this for the various department, is that reflected in those numbers?
We, since we don't know, to answer your question directly, sir, we're projecting that sometime in the next fiscal year, we may be back to having on-site training. So we've allowed money for on-site training in the next fiscal year, since that's going to carry us 14 months out. If it ends up that everything's online, then we'll realize savings. But just following our conservative approach, we thought we would budget for on-site training. And if we don't have those expenditures, then all the better from a budget balancing perspective.
Okay. And Mr. Jones, can I ask of you, while we're still having the meeting, I mean, we don't have to stop right now, but if you could chime back in when you get it. The total amount that we're spending across the 3 departments for education and trading, just the total amount.
Sure.
If you could just wrangle that number up, that would be great. But in the meantime, I don't want to just tie up the meeting and wait for you to do that, but just let us go ahead.
And you would want that across all offices and departments then, sir?
Yeah,
it's for the town. It's
government
organization wide.
General government, public services, public projects, I mean, and the police department. Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'll get that for you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I had. Thank you.
I have
Thank you,
a question.
Councilman. Yes, Councilmember Dixon.
I don't know how much cost savings, if any at all, it would, but I mean, we could, if the other council members are open to it, we could also hold off on the cell phones that we were going to receive, if that has any, if it has any impact and is helpful to the budget in terms of swapping it out for what's on the spreadsheet, for one of the items on the spreadsheet.
Mr. Town Manager, Mr. Jones, thoughts on that?
I would say that we're comfortable with the adjustments that we made. And I would characterize our Sunday work and Monday work on this as we looked for areas that would have the least negative impact on the community and on operations. So I'm comfortable with what we're presenting tonight, but if the council chooses to do that, then the funds could be reprogrammed. That's a council decision.
What's the total amount that's going into the council cell phones?
It's going to be about $3,500 or $3,400, do something like that. Right?
Each?
No.
No, hopefully not.
A total, sir. So it's $40 a month times 7 times 12.
40 a month, that's 480 times 7. 3360.
You said about 3,500, so that's pretty close.
Yeah.
And these, I mean, and so $40 a month, and essentially these are so that staff or folks are able to get in touch with us.
This
Correct.
is so we can segregate our personal emails and personal phone calls from legal discovery.
Oh, so this is also for just being able to receive town emails as well.
Yes.
Town emails, if your cell phone number's then published, calls from constituents, as well as the mayor said, to segregate town business from personal business, to give you that opportunity.
Sure. Okay.
I would say it's a best practice to try to segregate.
Okay.
I mean, I'm comfortable
Go ahead,
with going
Ms.
with
Dixon.
I'm comfortable with going ahead with the town manager's judgment. I mean, we've been functioning, maybe not ideally, and obviously in terms of our protocols, it would be ideal if we could separate it. But if we have over 12,000 that we need to balance the budget, and if the town manager felt like we took from somewhere that he would have preferred that we not take from, then I would be comfortable with the change. But if he's comfortable with it, then I'm fine with it, with leaving it as is.
Well, my question is, again, and I might have missed it during the presentation, being that we're trying to identify an additional $12,500.
We
Again,
already have, sir.
where do you, okay.
So,
all right. Well, I'd like to look at the paperwork tomorrow and see where it is from there.
okay.
There's plenty of time to amend this. We don't have to do it tonight.
Yes, we did. We've got 3 weeks.
Okay, is there any more discussion of the operating and capital budget? Hearing none, let's hop ahead on the agenda to the Municipal Center project, update on roof replacement.
And we'll have Miss Ivy Lewis speaking to that, sir.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Give just a very brief update on the roof replacement project at the police department and town hall buildings and the process we're going to follow to secure a roofing contract. I do want to say that staff is not requesting any council action this evening, but instead at next week's legislative session, staff will seek authorization for the council, for the manager to sign in an agreement with the roofing company to replace the roof system at both buildings. The town's architects on the Municipal Center projects have completed design specifications and drawings for the new roofs. With these details, staff issued a request for proposal on April 21st to the 2 on-call roofing companies under the University of Maryland's roofing contract. Going this route will shorten the bidding process, which will allow the town to meet the June due date for committing the balance of state bond bill funds that were issued in 2013. Proposals are due this week, and the review committee comprising both staff and the architects will make a selection for council's consideration at next week's legislative meeting. As you know, funding for the project is a combination of both bond bill funds and state community development administration loan funds. I should note that the project architects did do an assessment of the condition of the roof at the Public Works building and determined it's in good shape and not in need of replacement. So the project will just comprise the replacement of the roof systems at the police department and town hall. With that, I'll take questions. Thank you.
Any council members have questions for Director Lewis?
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes, please.
Just to make sure, essentially, proposals going in tomorrow is going to be received by the town tomorrow. It's going to be reviewed and decided on by May 1st. And then it would be coming back to council at the May 5th meeting.
Yes.
Do I have that correct?
That proposals are not required until Thursday morning.
So the 30th. Okay.
And
then the committee's going to review and respond by May 1st.
Yes. Well,
Okay.
review and make a recommendation that we'll bring to the council on the 5th.
Okay. That's all I had, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other council questions or comments? Hearing none, let's move on to item number 4, Charter Amendment 2020-CR-01 regarding town government organizational structure.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may speak to items number 4, 5, and 6, since they all kind of go together. There's one memo in the packet for all of these. This is the long-standing edits as part of changing the form of government and trying to provide balance for those holding unclassified positions and making some positions that are currently in the classified service, unclassified. But the memo details the conversations that we've had, including, I believe, copies of the minutes are still attached to this memo. Ms. Barnes, can you confirm when we're going to have the public hearing for the charter amendment?
Yes, let me just double check my advertisement here. And that date is May the 19th at 7 p.m.
So we would have the charter amendment public hearing then, and then all these items would be on for approval in early June.
Okay.
The May 19th is our work session also because of the Memorial Day holiday, correct?
It is.
Yes.
Okay, are there any other questions on these 3 items? We've seen them a lot before.
Yeah, I know we have. Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Yeah, this is something I've just had this concern about. And the more I think about it, the more I have a concern about it. And it's regarding dealing with Director of Public Projects and Services and the Chief of Police, mainly how the appointment and dismissal is being set up and what's current and what's proposed. And my thought is that if we're making an adjustment and we're allowing for a 4-month salary for dismissal without cause, and that essentially to have that dismissal would need to occur with the council consent, I just think if that's going to be the case on both of those positions, that the appointment should also be with council consent.
Well, actually, sir, the dismissal and the severance would be for all direct reports of the town manager.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at those particularly because essentially they're both heading up departments.
Well, and actually these changes, sir, will recognize the positions of Director of Finance and Employee Services, the Director of Administrative Services, and Director of Development Services as department heads.
Mm-hmm. And how many employees are under each of those departments?
A handful, a few. Public Works has 8
True.
employees. Neighborhood Services, which falls under Development Services, are 2 currently. 2 currently in admin services. It's about areas of responsibility. And, and my argument, sir, is that we should find balance. And right now, the town manager can dismiss your finance director, your development services director, and your director of administrative services with no oversight. We're too small of an organization. So my proposal is to make their dismissals be with the concurrence of council. However, I am making the proposal that whoever sits in my chair, the chair I currently hold, it's not mine, that they be able to select their own team. If your town manager, which in the form of government that you all adopted in 2016, a strong town manager position, making the town manager a CEO, not a CAO, should be able to select her or his own team, considering that the town manager can be dismissed for any reason, and to include issues in individual departments. And being able to select their own team is something that is quite common in this particular form of a town manager form, or a council manager form of government. When you have this strong of a position. So I'm trying to, my proposal is to try to strike balance.
Okay. I mean, I appreciate that. I'm just thinking when I look at, these two positions, and it's kind of that point was kind of made to there when you were saying about the number of employees that a director of public projects and services is overseeing in relation to development services director and employee services director. And I mean, it's considerably more for the public project services, and it's also the scope of what they're doing too, and what they're addressing for the town has a much more broader scope and really physical impact upon the town. Likewise for chief of police, who is overseeing a staff of as we saw, close to 30 individuals. I just think these are two very visible directorships within a town.
I only have 5 direct reports.
Pardon me?
I only have 5 direct reports.
For which?
In terms of employees that report directly to me.
Yes, you do. That's true. But then again, you're also, you have an overall broader responsibility for the whole town as well.
I'm sorry, if you don't mind me interrupting. I just want to make sure I'm clear with what the request is. I'm unfortunately trying to read it on this very small phone. So can we summarize which, where's the additional oversight for what 2 positions?
May I jump in to do this?
Sure.
So at the moment in the existing charter, as we adopted many years ago now, the appointment of a chief of police and a director of public projects and services, or public works director as it was at the time we passed it, requires council approval. And the proposal is to make that no longer require council approval, but to make it consistent with all the other department heads that the process of appointment is a decision of the town manager solely. But in contrast to the current situation, the process of letting someone go would require a approval of the council for all of the director positions, and not just the police chief and public works director as it currently is. Excuse me, director of public projects and services. And so there's been a balancing of the other department heads that they can no longer be let go at the sole decision of the town manager, but the hiring would be at the discretion of the town manager and not subject to approval by the town council. Although realistically speaking, I can't imagine that a town manager would appoint someone that the council would not be happy with, since of course the town manager's job depends on the council being happy with the town manager. Does that cover the, do you understand the proposed changes?
I think so. So the proposed change is adding the chief of police position and the public works, and I know I'm not doing the title accurately, would no longer require council approval to get hired. However, yes, all of the positions would require council's approval for dismissal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And added to that is, what was not before. I mean, previously there was no severance, and with the proposed, there would be 4-month salary for dismissal. That would be going, if someone were to be dismissed.
So just to be fair, previously there were individual contracts that were adopted for each of these positions, and most of them had severance packages in them. And so now there's again a uniformity across all the department heads.
And what we had, quite frankly, and it's public record, so I'll share it here. Mr. Addison was a better negotiator than Chief Morris. No, he negotiated a better individual contract. And that doesn't help build cohesion across the team. And there's no secrets. And
Okay.
so he negotiated a much better contract than Chief Morris did. Better for the individual, not better for the town. And I'm looking to have a scheme, if you will, where folks that report to me are treated consistently, have the same protections, have the same processes, not based on the number of direct reports, but based upon the level of responsibility. Your finance director is in a position of public trust that goes far beyond the one full-time person that reports to him. It covers the entire organization, as we've evidenced by our recent work on the budget. Development Services is responsible for ensuring that our accessible base grows so we can fund public works, so we can fund the police department. Administrative Services touches every aspect, works supporting in many ways the other operations. I would argue that each of these 5 groups is equal in keeping the town afloat and projecting and moving the town forward to achieve the vision and commitment that the mayor and council have made. I would say one is no more important than the other in being able to achieve the overall vision and commitment that the mayor and council have laid in front of us. That's my argument. And those individuals should be, in my opinion, treated and set up in a scheme where they are addressed fairly and consistently among their peers.
And one thing I would like to throw in just for the historical record is that when I was writing the change of the form of government, that this was a very difficult decision as to which way to go on this. I looked at a lot of different charters, and I would agree with the town manager's assessment that many of them have the sort of symmetry in department heads and the decision of the town manager to hire. And I had to make a decision in my proposed legislation about which way to go for us. And I went with the current direction, but it was with some concern, as I had with many decisions where I was trying to decide one way or the other, that perhaps it would have some side effects that were not ideal. And so I am supportive of the town manager's proposal because I believe it's consistent with the form of government we have and the exact form of government that we have with the powers that are entrusted to the town manager. And so I find it an acceptable decision.
Okay. So essentially you're saying you're okay with the when the two department heads for public works or public services, public projects and services, and for the chief of police to come in as hires on the town manager's discretion without consent from the town council.
Yes.
Okay.
Of course, I'm unlikely to be able to vote on this, but nevertheless, as the author of the changes to the form of government, I just wanted to mention that I think that this is consistent with our form of government.
Okay. Thoughts from the other council members?
I have a tendency to agree with the mayor. I believe that a leader should ultimately have the responsibility of choosing their team to their own success or demise. And I think the town manager has earned that right in this setting. I don't have a problem with him choosing the personnel that he feels will make our town most successful. If that answers your question, Councilman Lingua.
Okay.
I will speak for Councilwoman Dixon. She says this sandwich is delicious.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to give this one some thought. I was not on the council when the original charter was created, so I don't have fully the background. So, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the background. And I think, without speaking for him here, some reservation from Councilman Lingua, and I'm honestly not 100% sure myself. I get both sides of the argument, and that, you know, if we're going to appoint someone to a leadership position, then truly give them the right to lead in the way that they deem fit. One question I was going to ask when the town manager was speaking is, I recognize, from the perspective of how you described it, that there shouldn't be a difference between any of the leadership positions and the impact that they have on the town, or their contribution to effectively making our town run. But I would ask, would you say that the chief of police and the, can you tell me the right title so that I don't want to.
Public projects and services.
Public projects and services interface with the community more so than perhaps some of the other positions?
I would say that Ms. Barnes probably interfaces with the community as much as anyone, perhaps more. Ryan.
That is true, but you get the right to hire Ms.
Yes.
Barnes solely. Okay.
Yes, and Ryan interfaces with the business community and the community as much as anyone. The chief interfaces with the community a ton. So does Ms. Lewis. I think we all do. Please know that this proposal has nothing to do with me. This isn't.
Yeah, no,
And if I could just expand on that, this has to do with trying to help the council fully implement what it was that was decided in 2016. My counterparts that I talk to on a regular basis, those in positions similar to mine, not a city or town administrator, but as a city or town manager, they all get to select and dismiss all of their direct reports. I've argued we're too small for that. You do not want your next town manager to come in and be able to dismiss all of her or his direct reports without oversight. So that's why I'm arguing that for the good of the town, that should be expanded. Council oversight should be expanded on termination. However, whoever you have as your next town manager, that person should be able to select her or his team, because you will hold the town manager accountable for that department manager's performance. And that's different than the former form of government where the police chief and then the director of public works and your town administrator all reported to the mayor. And so it made sense when they were direct reports to the mayor that the council was involved in that decision. You would have the legislative body involved in appointing someone who reported to the council. You no longer have that form of government.
Sorry, I thought I was on mute. I hope you guys can hear me chewing. Okay, I know we're not voting, excuse me, on anything right now. but I can just say now that I just need to just think through flesh out for myself all of the pros and cons. Just for clarification, so we're expanding on the dismissal as well?
Well, no. The dismissal, we're limiting that because I don't believe that whoever you have in this chair should be able to dismiss a department manager without the consent of the council. I think if she or he,
which currently, except for police and public projects and services, the town manager can dismiss without consultation with the council.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so currently I could, sorry, Ms. Barnes, but I could say, Ms. Barnes, Mr. Shelton, Mr. Smith, thank you for your service. And then I can send the council an email and say, this is what I just did. And I think in this small of an organization, the town should have, the council, the elected body, should have to consent to that. The way they have to consent to if it was the chief of police or the director of public projects and services. So I'm actually asking for more oversight on dismissal because I think that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was finished. I was just saying I think that's needed in this small of an organization.
Councilmember Dixon, while you're researching this, I would recommend that you go to the MML site where the charters for all the other towns in the state are available, and look at their list of governments that are classified as council manager and review their charters. And there are, of course, hundreds, 150 odd. But I did that during the process. I tried to find towns that were similar to us, and I reviewed them, and it was time consuming, but quite educational.
Okay. Mr. Town Manager, just for argument's sake, and I won't prolong this conversation too much, but to your point about, our town being small and therefore oversight in letting go of a staff person, or at least a leadership staff person, you think that the council should have some oversight. So what's the argument for not allowing council to have oversight for all of the hires? So maybe just making the adjustment so that, and I wouldn't say oversight, but a council approval on both sides.
I think it goes to your town manager being able to select her or his team, and putting their team together to complement skills in that. It's we recently hired an assistant chief of police who, when the chief isn't around, acts as the chief of police. That didn't come before the council. We advised the council that this is the new assistant chief of police. I would say from a recruitment standpoint, it was one area that I was hesitant about when I read your charter. Being concerned that the legislative body would select who it is that is going to, or confirm who it is that is going to occupy positions that are direct reports, but then turn and hold me accountable for their performance. It's not being a CEO, it's being a middle manager. I mean, that's what happens to middle managers, not to a chief executive officer.
Okay. Couldn't the same argument be made in terms of if we have the ability to not approve a dismissal, couldn't the same argument be made that by virtue of having that ability, you're unable to have a team that you want? right? So, because then it would just be in the converse. Instead of being able to hire someone that you want, you're now sort of stuck with someone that you don't want.
And that's what a lot of why a lot of my peers have suggested to me, John, you don't want to have the council have expanded authority here. But you don't want to hire someone that comes in and dismisses everyone, and then you dismiss that person. And it's not like we have assistant directors in all these areas. And you could very quickly end up with a situation where the town's not functional. And so in this small of an organization, I think the right thing to do is to expand and require council consent to dismiss, while trying to find balance and offer your town manager, whoever that happens to be, the ability to hire their team.
I'm just going to speak plainly about one aspect of this whole discussion, and that is that in the sort of unpleasant situations that I've observed around the state when there's a disagreement between the council and management of the town, then it typically goes badly very quickly. So if a town manager proposed to dismiss someone and the council refused to let that happen, then it would be an indication that the council did not trust the town manager, and probably things would go down very quickly in the relationship between them, and the town manager would probably be gone within a short period of time, either by resigning or by being let go by the council. And I think that similarly, if the town manager, if there was oversight by the council and the town manager proposed to hire someone and the council rejected that person, it would also indicate a situation where there was a rift between the town manager and the town council that was irreparable. And so practically speaking, I think that this isn't a situation that is likely to have a huge outcome. So I don't know exactly how to summarize that statement, but anyway, that's how these the breakdown in the relationship between town managers and councils tend to go.
Mm-hmm. And I would concur with that, Mayor. I whether it was here or in another town or city, if I came with a recommendation that a person needed to go, or hey, this is the person that I need on the team, and that support wasn't there, that would be a clear indication to me that I should sharpen my resume skills. And I think that's pretty much industry wide.
I get that, but to me that it's sort of leaning toward like if I think the mayor's making the argument that it's harmless to the extent that it's harmless to give the town manager the ability to hire whomever, because because he or she should have the leadership. But I guess and I guess the counter to that is, and I may not be expressing myself very eloquently, is wouldn't we meaning a council, wouldn't the council support whomever the town manager would want to hire anyway if we fully supported that town manager? Like, what does that make sense? Like the argument that if a council wouldn't want to go along with a town manager's request to hire or fire, that would be an indicator that the council does not have faith and trust in that town manager. And if we go with that premise, then what's the harm in keeping the ability to approve those hires and fires? Because if we have faith in that town manager, then that council would more than likely approve the town manager's request regardless. Does that make sense?
I understand your point. I would suggest if that's where the council is, then I think the council needs to consider whether you want to amend the charter to not have a CEO position, but rather to change your council manager form of government to have a CAO, where you have a chief administrative officer instead of a chief executive officer. I think that's something that the council should consider if that's the direction you're considering going.
And your logic behind that is the difference between the CEO and the CAO is the only difference between the CEO and the CAO is that a CEO should have the right to hire and perhaps fire their employees. And if that isn't.
No, I would say it's broader than that. The town's charter makes my position and the positions that report to me the executive branch of government. And as opposed to having a CAO position where the mayor retains an executive position for more than ceremonial purposes.
Or there could be a commissioner form where the executive and the legislative branches are intermixed. But
Yes.
that wasn't the direction that we went in the charter change.
And like I said, I wasn't here for I wasn't on the council for the charter change. So, my input at that point in time wasn't considered. So I understand. I mean, I'm just working with what we have now and what's before us in terms of the change that's being requested. I won't hold this up any longer, but I definitely will have to give it some thought.
And Mr. Mayor, if the council's not prepared to move forward with this, then I think we would need to table or withdraw the introductions because we have a public hearing scheduled. And
I'm only one person, so I'm not saying
the public hearing could also change the outcome. I think that we can continue to hold the public hearing. I mean, if the council's, not ready to vote, then that's one thing. But I think we've heard that there are 2 council members who are, we have 1 council member I think is concerned. We have another one who wants to think it over. We have 1 in support. We still have 2 other council members. So I think we can continue moving forward with the public hearing. Any other comments or discussion?
Did Ms. Mayor want to comment?
Excuse me?
Did Ms. Mayor want to comment?
Councilmember Mayers?
I'm here.
Do you want to comment, or are you listening and thinking?
I'm just listening and thinking to make it go.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Unless someone else wants to make a comment, I'd like to move on to the next item.
Fine by me.
Which is an update regarding the Partners in Economic Recovery Program.
Mr. Mayor, we'll have Mr. Shelton on this one. Brian?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm happy to give you an update on the Partners in Economic Recovery Program as a summary of what has led us here so far. This economic recovery program was established in response to COVID-19 and its impact on our economy here in town. We've reallocated $125,000 from the General Fund Reserve to the Economic Development Fund and $25,000 from the Fund Reserve to the Community Development Fund. The first program that I would like to talk about tonight is the Farmers Market Dollar Program. We've had a lot of success with this program. We've assisted just over 125 separate households totaling over 568 individuals so far. And the program has switched into an entirely contactless system. So we're no longer accepting applications and dispersing the vouchers at the farmer's market. We're now doing everything via mail in order to reduce the chance and likelihood that there will be a large crowd and people having to congregate too closely. And that's been very successful. We've had about $13,000, almost $14,000 farmers market dollars have been mailed out to applicants of the program. And to date, I just went in and counted today, there was, including this past farmers market this last week, we've reimbursed the vendors for $7,359. So that's how many of the farmers market dollars have been spent on vendors up till now. The program is seeing more and more we're seeing more dollars turned in by vendors every week. And so I'm expecting it to be fairly close to the entire 13,000 that we've had distributed to date. And I'm happy to say that we've also been seeing a lot of the vendors with success for those who are distributing produce and other sort of items that we were hoping that the residents in need would go to. Right now, about 77% of the farmers market dollars have been redeemed from produce vendors. Yes, and the last thing I'd like to say about this is I was just talking to Jim Coleman earlier today on the phone, and Jim told me that he was receiving a lot of questions from other municipalities and other farmers market programs about this program, and they were wondering how they could replicate it in their municipalities. And Jim told me, frankly, he is not sure that most municipalities could have pulled this off. He tells many of the people that call him that it works here because we have such a well-organized team, and our partnership between the market and the town here is so strong. And he's not sure if everybody could pull this off, but he's very appreciative that we were able to do this here. And yes, that was very flattering to hear from him.
Okay.
We've received recognition from other organizations also, in particular the Prince George's County Food Equity Council features us prominently on their page as a model program.
That's great to hear. It's good to see that all our hard work is paying off for that. It was quite the scramble to get it up and running, but it's working very well so far. The next couple of items, we have a couple of existing incentive programs that we have for businesses that were amended. The Business Growth Grant Program, the Business Improvement Grant Program, and our existing Spring Forward Grant Program. And all of these programs are being advertised to businesses to help pay for any sort of upgrades that they were already planning on doing, and to make sure that they're aware of programs that we have that can assist them in the way these programs are designed to. The next program here is the Resident Restaurant Town Partnership Program. We have signed an agreement with a company called Yifty. Yifty handles gift card distribution and digital gift card distribution. So we've figured out all the details of the agreement. The basics are that residents will be able to either use an app on their smartphones or receive an email via the website after they have purchased a gift card with their 16-digit number. It's a MasterCard number. The card would be redeemed just like any other gift card or MasterCard would during the transaction process with the business. The business sign-up process is fairly simple. We're in the process right now of signing up a handful of businesses, restaurants to use the program. And it's been pretty simple so far. And for the businesses, nothing really has to change. They just use the same sort of transaction techniques that they would for a normal credit card. So we're very excited about this, and I'm expecting the point of the program is that we can provide residents with an additional 20%, making their dollar stretch a little bit further through this program. And YIFTI has been kind enough to amend their process in order to allow us to do this. So we're very happy and thankful that they were able to help us with that. The program should launch within the next couple of days. There's one or two final touches that I need to work through with YIFTI, but there should be a link on our town website, and I'm sure that there will be one on our social media accounts as well promoting the program. Excuse me. The next program here is the Emergency Repair Grant Program. I have seen a lot of other emergency grant repair programs and have drafted an application based off of other municipalities' programs. I've also heard back from a number of other municipalities and their administrators for this program. And they've given me some tips that they've seen just from administrating the program over the years and things that they recommend changing from their own program based on hardships that they've had with it and difficulties that they've had. And so right now I'm gaining a little bit of clarification from one or two of those administrators, and I'm amending our application. It should be up by the end of the week on our website to help residents and businesses, anyone in need, apply for the Emergency Repair Grant Program. And the last program I'm going to address is the Direct Benefit Grocery Program. I've been very thankful that OAS and Jessica Barnes and her group over there have been very helpful with this. Today, one of our staff members confirmed that we received 54 vouchers for distribution to families that are in need of food at this time. The vouchers are for Mega Mart, and they will be mailed out within the next day or two, I would say, probably tomorrow. Yes, we're very happy to help those 50 plus families. The list of families that was provided to us was given by a Department of Social Services employee that works with the Riverdale Elementary School. And so, yes, we are sure that this program will help them quite a bit, and we're pretty happy with it.
Good to hear.
Good work, Ryan.
Very good. Are there questions or comments for Mr. Shelton?
I only have one question.
Please go ahead.
Councilmember Dixon?
I was just going to ask, I didn't hear, I heard that about a little over 7,000 had been used at the farmer's market, but can you may have said it and I just didn't catch it, how much we gave to residents? Like it's 7,000 out of how many farmers market dollars?
Yes, currently we've distributed about $13,000 so far. And yes, it wasn't a consistent distribution. So it kind of ramped up at the first week. Obviously, we did not distribute all 127 different applications. It was much closer to 40 or 50. And so as it's increased, we've distributed more and more funds, and we've also seen more and more come in. And so based on that, I'm expecting a slight flattening of the curve, as it were, but we will see pretty close to 13,000 redeemed from what I can tell. I'm expecting at least 10,000 in total for the month of April.
Councilman Lingua, you had a question?
Yeah, kind of following up from Councilmember Dixon, I just want to make sure I got this right, because what I'm reading here is that you have $13,825 that have been distributed, and to date you have $5,104 that have been redeemed, of which 77% of those dollars are from essentially the produce vendors. Do I have that correct?
I thought I heard 7,000.
Well, I'm just
sorry.
Yes,
I counted the last week's market today, and it was an additional roughly $2,500.
Okay, so essentially $7,600 has been redeemed.
Roughly, yes. Yeah.
Okay, rough, give or take.
Yes, I think it's 7,300 This is exactly how much.
7,300. Okay. Roughly $7,300 have been redeemed out of the 13,825 that have been distributed. Now, these are dollars that are good for the month of April, correct?
That's correct.
So for a lot of these folks, if they're not using it this coming market, come May, those market dollars are of no worth.
That's correct. And we did this for the reason that we didn't want to have a lot of vouchers out in the wind, as it were.
Right.
We don't want to have to set aside funds for this for who knows how long in order to eventually catch these vouchers as they come in. We have a new design for the May farmers market dollars, and those will be mailed out, I believe, by the end of this week or early next week, so that they're able to be used at the next farmers market after this Thursday's farmers market. So yes, the applicants will receive their new batch of farmers market dollars for the next month, but these dollars that we've mailed out so far, they will have to be used immediately, which is kind of the intent of the program. This is meant to be an emergency assistance program, and if they're hoarding the dollars, as it were, that kind of negates the purpose of the program.
I agree. And so essentially you're also looking at this as coming out to roughly just over $100 per household, because you're looking at roughly 4.5 people per household.
Yes, that sounds about right. Yes.
Okay. So now that's currently what's been distributed. Whether or not that all gets used up is another story. My other question was like the turnaround for being that you've gone to a mail-in system. What has been the average turnaround for the mail-in, Ben?
They're typically mailed within the same week. The second, I believe it's the third week, we received 40 new families. And so each week we mail those out right away as soon as they come in.
Okay, so essentially you get something that's either coming in, and these are coming in by email, correct?
A lot of times they're calling in. We're accepting them over the phone. We have a bilingual staff member that has been incredibly helpful in helping families through the process.
Okay, and you're able to get verification of some sort that they are town residents over the phone. Right.
So we're able to get at least their address in place. So all of these go to only one allotment per address. So it's not like they're necessarily double dipping.
And the addresses that we are mailing to are all within town.
Okay.
So that's how we're making sure they're town residents.
Okay. All right. Great. And okay, that's the only questions I had. Thank you.
If I may share just one thing, our staff team reports just how very, very thankful the residents are when they're going through this process. These dollars are being used in the absolute best way, and these families are so, so appreciative. So thank you to the mayor and council for pushing through this program. It's amazing.
Great program.
As I said in my report, then the response to these food distributions of all sorts have been overwhelming and enormous, and I think it just reflects how many people are out of work and getting hungry, and we need to try to address that fundamental need. Are there any other questions about the Partners in Economic Development program? Partners in Economic Recovery, excuse me. If not.
Actually, I had one question regarding on the the Resident Restaurant Town Partnership Program. There are 4 restaurants that have committed to date. Is that any thoughts on, I mean, I know we have more than 4 restaurants, and I was just wondering if staff had any thoughts on the number.
Yes, I've found that the number is pretty low. I've made a lot of phone calls, and I think that there's a lot of restaurants that are trying to play it safe right now, as it were, and the fact that this is a new program, and they don't know exactly how it will look when it's operating yet. I think they're being overly cautious at the moment, and I think as soon as we receive some success with the first handful of businesses here, we will have a lot more restaurants signing up.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully that expands, because I think it's a great program, and I think if you have a greater selection, folks are going to be interested in it as well. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you said you're getting tips on the emergency repair grant program, just in terms of like figuring out how to administer it all and how to go about processing requests.
That's right. Different requirements that are being that is recommended from other administrators and municipalities based on what they've seen. One of the stories that comes to the top of my mind is one of the administrators told me about how they were awarding one of their emergency grant program recipients when they found that there was a lot of code enforcement issues with the property as well, and it was significant in that they were behind on a lot of different other aspects, and they were basically not in good standing with the town. So they gave me some tips along those lines to include in our requirements to make sure that we didn't run into the same kind of issues.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I would like to hear back more on how those parameters are set up, because I think it would be tough to have a scenario where if someone loses heat or central air, or their HVAC goes out or their water heater goes out, and they make a request and they're being denied because of code issues that may not be related to the emergency they're experiencing or something else. I would just like to know. I would like to see how those parameters are set up.
Okay, yes, I can certainly follow up with you on that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Any other council questions or comments? I don't see any members of the public in attendance, but if there are, public comments are always welcome. Hearing no other questions or comments, let's move on to Chapter 53, Police Department.
So on this one, like the items 4, 5, and 6, it's on for an additional look if the council has comments or questions. It's updating an antiquated code, as well as adding language to address the interaction of police with residents regarding undocumented folks. And I believe Chief Morris and I, in working on this, at one point he described it as this could be a model policy or model code. And we tried to find the right balance in to make it clear what officers will do, not just what officers won't do. And and that's unique, because a lot of jurisdictions address these by saying thou shall not, and as opposed to making it clear that here are things that the officers will do. And so Chief, do you have anything to add to that?
I'll just say that the town manager, I worked very hard on this. We looked at a lot of situations, and what we sought was a policy that's fair and balanced, and and works well for the safety of our community collectively. So I feel very comfortable with where we are. It's been through legal review, and I will reiterate what I shared with John. I think we've got a policy that other towns and cities could adopt and serve their communities well.
Okay. From what I've read of it, I'm comfortable with it, so I have no reservations of it moving forward.
I agree as well. And my exploration of other codes that towns were writing was a much more simplistic version of what is a very delicate issue. I'm not experienced in reading a ton of legislation, so it takes me some time, and I have some questions on this that I will push towards later dates. But I read this, and this is the town that I want to live in. This is the way that I would love to see our police force be able to interact with our undocumented population, because we are a community of great need. That is obvious here. And I feel like at this point, specifically trying to enforce federal mandates on immigration, it would put quite a strain on this community in particular. And I went through this concerned of the public appearance, concerned about how chief and the police force may feel. And I do believe that it offers them ultimate decision-making authority in that moment that allows them to make the best decisions based on the safety and security of our own community. So I just want to commend Chief. I want to commend Town Manager for coming up with this. This is tremendous legislation, and I look forward to seeing it move forward. So thank you.
And Councilmember, if you have questions that you want to ask offline, I'm always available.
Absolutely, Chief. I know you are.
Compliments. Thank you.
And I would encourage you to have that conversation, because we were under the impression that this was to move forward and be introduced at the next legislative meeting. Is that the case?
That was my goal. I had talked to the mayor previously about this, and he likes it being at a legislative meeting that it would be introduced. I mean, it's been on our list for multiple months now, and I would like to see that. I would like to see this voted on, before the end of the summer. So I hope to introduce it at the next meeting.
Any additional? I'm sorry.
My only question is, and I haven't had a chance to read it in full detail, but my question is regarding when to vote on it. I just wonder if we were proposing this under different circumstances where we were actually in town hall, whether we would get a more public comment and residents who would want to comment on it. And I just wonder if residents will feel like I get that it's been on other work sessions, but I wonder if they would feel like they didn't have an opportunity to comment, and that it was passed during a period in time where they didn't get to speak. I'm not so much regarding those who would be in support, but those who would not be in support of it is really where I'm focused. I didn't have the technology to be able to log on to your Zoom meetings, and I would have wanted to say something about it. I know it's been in the crier, but I just wonder if there isn't any urgency. I don't know. I mean, just something to think about, whether I just feel like full transparency and opportunity for comment on legislation that may be uncomfortable or be concerning to some residents may be something we should consider in terms of timing.
I will say, Councilmember, and thank you for that, but during some of the other work session, there were some folks from the public that did comment, had some suggestions, if you will, or recommendations for some clarification. And those were taken into consideration and some were incorporated into the document that we currently have.
Are there any other
Okay.
council comments? Okay, let's move forward to the next item, the International Property Maintenance Code. Discussion of interesting questions. Did I
Ms.
miss one?
Barnes? No, Ms. Barnes or Mr. Shelton?
Yes, I will be handling this one. Yes, everybody's favorite topic, if I recall correctly. The International Property Maintenance Code. Yes, this is, we're speaking about this prior to finalizing the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code for adoption. We received the comment at a previous meeting that perhaps neighborhood services and the staff there should provide their input on suggested local amendments. And we've taken that to heart. We've talked to them and they've provided the 2 local amendments found here in the packet. The first local amendment is regarding swimming pools, spas, and hot tubs, and specifically the electrical safety. The specific amendment would be all swimming pools, spas, and hot tubs requiring electricity must have a ground fault circuit interrupt receptacle. The purpose of adding this is to improve safety around these swimming pools, spas, and hot tubs by providing them with electrical, by keeping them safe from electrical wires that may be operating inappropriately. The second recommended local amendment is regard to heating facilities. It says that dwellings shall be provided with heating facilities capable of maintaining a room temperature of, and this is where we make the change, from 68 to 70 degrees in all habitable rooms, bathrooms, and toilet rooms based on the winter outdoor design temperature for the locality indicated in Appendix D of the International Plumbing Code. So yes, the point behind changing it from 68 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit is so that it remains consistent with the county's code section, which states 70 degrees Fahrenheit at this time. Joe, do we have any comments on these recommended local amendments or comments on additional local amendments in general?
Well, on 6202 and there are 62.2 and 62.3, it sounds like whoever had that, I mean, being that it's following county code, I would say, you know, seems like there are folks in the county that never lived up north. But they're saying 70 degrees, and that's already county code. Well, I mean, we want to be consistent with county code, so.
70 degrees is county code as is?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mean my comment about not living up north?
Exactly.
Said the man from Pittsburgh.
Hey, listen, but I got a wife from Connecticut, so it's even colder up there.
Exactly. I mean, to my point. So that's okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with this. The GFCI makes you know, that definitely makes sense. That's almost, you know, to the point of being a no-brainer. And you know, the occupancy, that's fine. I mean, no one likes a cold seat, but I'll leave it at that.
So can I ask a question or two about these changes, starting with 303.3? That's a local amendment that's not already required in the IPMC?
That's right. It would be a local amendment. As far as I know, it's not required.
Yeah.
That's a shocker to me that's a local amendment.
Surprising.
Not intended. Not intended.
I didn't even.
Oh, please. Oh, I didn't mean to make that joke. No.
And the other question is to whether this applies to existing installations, so it would require changes if the code is not met to existing installations, or is this just for new installations?
It applies to all, existing and new.
And there'll be some phase-in period to allow people time to do the changes.
Absolutely.
And
what's the phase-in period? Pardon me,
well,
Mr. Mayor.
It depends on what the condition is, because as we adopt this new property maintenance code and we say, here's the new standards, we have to be reasonable in applying all of our town codes. And it's going to depend on the conditions. So if someone has frayed wiring at, I'm not talking about these specific local amendments, but someone has frayed wiring in a building that currently is not covered by town code, and someone can get hurt, it's going to be a quick turnaround. If likelihood of someone not being hurt by a condition, then that's something that we would work with the property owner, because the last thing we want to do is have to force compliance. Our goal will always be, and I'm really proud of the tone that Jessica has set and that Ryan is continuing with. Our goal is voluntary compliance, and we do that primarily through education. But it really will be situational. If it's something where someone can get hurt, they may have to address it much more quickly than otherwise.
And how would that work for in-ground pools? Above ground are of course different, that are currently under electrical wires. Or do you know of any situations like that in the town?
I'm not aware of any in-ground pools that are under electrical wires. Typically, an in-ground pool would have required county permits for the installation. And I believe that, depending on when it may have been installed, that Prince George's County would have had a problem with a pool being installed under electrical lines.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit hard to both are hard to move in that case.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
The pool probably much harder than the electrical wires, but both can be a problem. Okay, I was just curious about that. I think that also in 602.3, it has bathrooms and toilet rooms are italicized. Those were added, is that correct? Or is that italicized for another reason?
Is that also in county code, bathrooms and toilet rooms, along with the 70 degrees, or are we making bathrooms and toilets especially warm in the town of Riverdale Park?
The language was consistent with the county's language, so that is correct. I believe the words that are italicized are the changes between just the update to the International Maintenance Code. We pull all of this from a red line version, so you can see the different changes as the code has changed over the years, I guess.
Okay. Okay, that is all of my questions on this item.
Okay. So the bathroom and toilet rooms is county as well.
Right. That language is consistent with the county code.
Okay, so that would would make us consistent with county code.
Correct. That was the intent, just for consistency purposes.
Okay, so it's across the county then.
Mm-hmm.
We can't be singled out to be the town where we feel that no seats should be cold.
That language, which sounds like it was added in a later version of the code, I would guess is just making it clear that those are included in habitable rooms, and that there's a concern about that. Doesn't make sense to me that they would add those other than that reason. Okay, any other council comments on these items?
No, those are the ones I had.
Okay. That brings us to the extension of contract with Bates Trucking.
Ms. Lewis?
Good evening again. As you know, the contract with Bates expires at the end of June of this year. The staff is requesting that at the next legislative session or the session after that, the council extend the contract for the 3 years that are required by the contract if extended, with expiration on June 30th, 2023. As you know, the contract was limited to 1 year with a provision that it may be extended for a period of 3 years with the possibility of 3 more years after that in 1 year increments. We acknowledge that the contractor continues to have performance issues in specific areas, and while they have demonstrated a commitment to address them, they still persist. We also acknowledge, however, that there have been significant improvements, and I can't express that enough, following the first 6 months of the contract, where we got a lot of complaints about collection in almost every area. The company has been, for the last several months, pretty consistent in collection, though on occasion there are some complaints. If the agreement is approved, the terms of the contract will remain the same for the next 3 years, including the per residential unit cost of $19.50 or $303,300 per year. In the age of COVID-19, the certainty for the next 3 years is very important in the cost of residential collection services. And at the same time, the town has an opportunity to exercise its ability to cancel the contract if the performance slips or there isn't sustained improvement in those areas where they still have challenges. The contract allows the town to terminate the contract with or without cause with just a 120-day notice. We continue to work with the contractor to address outstanding issues and hold them accountable with the means that we have to do so. I will say in closing that, you know, during the pandemic, their performance has been consistent.
Yeah.
Amazingly, given the problems they've had and given the situation we're under currently. And with that, I'll take questions.
Council? Going once? Councilman Lingua?
Well, for the sake of discussion, I'll just say this. I mean, I remember it was about a year ago at this time I was in this position where, you know, I was quite at odds with the service that they were providing, based on what I was seeing around in Ward 3. And I know exactly how Councilmember Dixon feels coming up to this point with a contract, in that being that there are still issues, especially over in Ward 1 in terms of Bates not making the required pickups that they need to over in the homeowners association area, as well as up the issues that they're having with the townhomes up in Riverdale Park Station, in that it's a hard pill to swallow to go ahead to renew a contract, especially for this amount of time. And if council member, if I'm saying anything that is not to your agreement, please do chime in. That being said, being the point where we are with what is going on from the, with the pandemic, in terms of how it's affecting our town, how it's going to affect our budget in the near future, and the fact that what we do have in terms of essentially remedies built into the contract for if space does not meet the metrics we've established for performance, it seems to me to proceed with this renewal of a contract. And in saying that, one of the things that, and I've mentioned this before, and more in passing, but I'll bring it up again here, is that during this time, during this 3-year period through June 30, 2023, is that council looks at how it is we as a town want to promote or to approach waste management in terms of regular waste, food waste, recycling, electronic, the myriad forms of recycling too, electronic recycling, any number of things going forward, so that when the time comes when we're looking at June 30, 2023, we're in a position to move forward on that. And I will leave it at that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may add.
Please do.
My only additional comment to build on what Councilmember Lingual was saying, as Ms. Lewis has indicated, the town can, with I believe 120 days notice, cancel the agreement at any time. So if the town were able to answer those questions that Councilmember Lingwood just talked about, the types of recyclings and food waste and all that, before 2023, the town would have an opportunity to shift directions at any time during this contract period.
Are there additional staff or council comments or public comments if there's anybody from the public here?
I would say to that point, I know we have that clause about that 120-day termination, and who knows what the future will bring and what could possibly happen. While it's something to consider, I just have a feeling that it would have to be an exceptional opportunity for us to be able to exercise that, because based on what I've seen, with the prior contract that went out and when we put out a bid for contracts, and what came back to us, again, being the uncertainty of what revenue we're going to have coming in, it seems locking in at this price for the next 3 years and having that certainty is something that we should try to build on. Again, I don't know what could possibly happen in the next 18 to 24 to 32 months. But my thought is let's get with what we can now and just be able to ready to move after 36 months.
Okay. Additional council comment?
Councilmember Dixon, does that sound like a plan to you?
I stand by what I said at the previous meeting, which is why I haven't added anything else. And I'm hoping that, you have the sufficient votes to move this forward, but just on general principle, I can't do it. I cannot, in good conscience, vote to support. But hopefully you will have the votes. We can whip the vote without my vote.
I understand. We had, I think the last time, this is something that needs 4 affirmative votes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, and the last time we had to vote on this, we had a total of 4 people up on the dais who were at the meeting. So as much as that time I wanted to be able to vote no on this, to do so would have been just a textbook, cutting off my nose to spite my face move. So I hope you have that. I hope you have that option to be able to do that, council member, because I do think that that is something that states should be able to see.
And I just hope it doesn't come down to my vote.
Yep, I know the feeling.
Okay. Next item on the agenda are minutes. We don't usually discuss those, so unless someone wants to, we can move to new business. Are there items from new business? I have one, and that is the McDonald's Corporation wants to do significant renovations at the McDonald's at the corner of East-West Highway and Baltimore Avenue. And this matter came before the MUTC committee in April. The committee made a recommendation at that time to recommend approval of the special permit. McDonald's will not be meeting all the standards, but they have delineated those, and they have worked hard to address the comments that the committee brought to the company. And I am hopeful. I will be reaching out to Park and Planning tomorrow that we can see the staff report that will be provided to the planning board as part of that before we vote. And the other issue is that the attorney who is representing McDonald's on this has presentations both with us and with College Park next Tuesday evening. And we're trying to figure out how to schedule that and how to make it work. But nevertheless, the MUTC committee did make a recommendation in April, and we as a council will have to make a recommendation, can make a recommendation to the planning board on how we feel about the proposed changes. So we need to add that to the agenda for next week, and I'll work with the town manager to schedule that.
Okay. The deviations that McDonald's wants, they were there was a list. So could you send them to me, please?
I can, and part of the reason that we don't have anything in hand is that I got a call from the attorney, Mr. Chris Hatcher, and he said that in a meeting that he had with Park and Planning staff after the MUTC meeting, that Park and Planning staff identified some items that may need to be identified in the special permit application that were not identified at the MUTC meeting. And so that's why I've been trying to get a report out of Park and Planning so that we would know what we were voting on. And and so that's the reason we don't have materials yet. And I'm hopeful that that report will be at least in late draft form and we can see it. Okay. But I can provide the materials that were provided to the MUTC committee to you, essentially immediately if you'd like to see those.
Well, yeah, just even if, I can wait on the Park and Planning stuff, but just be able to see what it is that, sure, what this was running to counter, for the, just MUTC standards, that'd be fine to start. Sure. And, part of the deal is that it's mainly a facade improvement or facade upgrade. And so not all of the MUTC standards apply, but many of them do. And so there's just a question of which ones that apply that they did not meet. And you can see that. But they did significantly alter the design from an initial consultation last fall to try to address the MUTC's issues, and they made significant improvements, but it still does not meet the standards. Okay. But I will be happy to provide the materials that were provided to MUTC to you, and I'll send them to the whole council. That'd be great. Thank you.
Are there any other items of new business? Are there any items of unfinished business? Let's go home. Well, we're all home.
Well, everyone.
Let's shut off Zoom and go and have the rest of our evenings. Thank you all. I appreciated meeting with you tonight.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
You guys. Thank you.
Have a good night.